Yeah, well, lovely to be here with you all, actually, and really delightful, because I haven't been here for about 4 weeks or something. I've been away on retreat, and I was here right at the beginning of the series when Artisity gave a talk about ritual. So when I came back from a solitary, and I thought I'll just listen to the talk. So I re-listened to Articity's talk, and I'm going to be referring a bit to that, and then followed through the whole sequence, which has been really lovely, actually. Just a lovely way of sort of connecting in with what's been happening. Yeah, so this evening, I'm going to be talking a bit about the last stage, the last fold of the sevenfold puja, which is rejoicing in merits and self-surrender. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Transference.
Sorry, what did I say?
Rejoicing.
Oh, that's because it's what it says in the book. Transference of merits and self-surrender. I've been saying that for like 20 odd years, so I should really know that by now, but I've sort of taken up by this book. And just to say, I'm referring a lot to this book, which I think everybody probably has. It's Sangha book on ritual and devotion. And it's really, really excellent. It really brings out a bit like, well, why would we do this ritual? A bit like Artisity was saying, what effect does it have? Why would we do it? And hopefully I'll bring that out a bit more as well. So I think I'm going to start by just reading the verse itself, and then I'll go on from there and just bring out some of the elements of it. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong page. This is not a good start, is it? What did you say about falling flat on your face or something? What's wrong with that? Transference of merit and self-surrender. Okay. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all 3 ways, I give up without regard to myself for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. So that's the final verse of the puja. So I thought I'd start by going back, actually, because re-listening to Articity's talk, and there were bits that I was, sort of really caught me, and I think he talked a bit about we're inoculated in some way, sort of protected in some way, that we've got an unusual level of privilege, and we've got access to a lot of resources, got a monopoly on many resources. I was really sort of struck by that. And then what happens if, I think Articity's question to himself was, well, what would happen if my family were threatened, or under threat? What would I be like? What would I do if I didn't have all of these conditions? I thought that was such a good question. And I thought, how would we be, or how are we when the conditions aren't great? When there's a few challenges or things, and we all have challenges, of course. But if we look at it, relatively, we are, there is this level of privilege that we've got. And I just thought a bit about the recent petrol shortage. When there was the thing about there wasn't petrol at petrol stations. And then, of course, everybody panics. This isn't to blame anybody, it's just sort of looking at the actual situation, but then everyone's sort of panicking. they're needing to go and get petrol, and people were getting assaulted, staff were getting assaulted and things like that, and people getting more and more desperate, and people are driving around to petrol stations. I could feel it in myself. I was staying out at a friend's and I borrowed a car, and I was like, oh God, I've got to get some petrol. I've got to get some petrol. I've got my practice to support me in sort of really trying to be with that, and just to remain aware of everybody else and the whole situation. But one of the things Artisidi was saying, we need to see where our self-interest, where that manifests, where we become self-centered and selfish, and in Buddhism we look at that, we try and look at that really openly and honestly. Because we can see, like, if somebody says, oh, we're selfish, it feels like a bit of a judgment. But it's not that, it's just recognising what happens, and trying to loosen something up around that sort of self-centeredness. I can remember being on a retreat once, and the retreat leader said something about who thinks they're the centre of the universe. We all really laugh, because we sort of all do think we're a bit the centre of the universe. But we're trying to go beyond that, and the puja is really trying to help us to do that. And so yes, we need to see that self-interest, and also, Artisidi was saying about discovering the vastness of the human potential. The beauty and the freedom that lies beyond that sort of self-interest. There's this beauty and freedom. And that's where we're sort of going with the puja. And the other thing you were saying was about going along to a Buddhist centre and feeling more yourself. I think that's what you said, feeling more yourself than you did outside of the Buddhist centre or something. And I thought about when I came along, I can remember feeling that I had a sort of persona, or I sort of, like masks. I had a mask or something. And I often felt like a fish out of water in life. I'd feel, in some situations, I could really be happy, if I was in communication with people, really deep communication, really enjoy that. And in other situations, put me in a party, I'd be, I'm like a fish out of water. And I'd feel it was something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me in this or something. And when I came along here, it's a very slow sort of process, because I've been practicing for years, but it was sort of like, oh, I don't have to wear a mask here or something. And it's a very slow sort of process, that, just dropping masks. And I still got them, but, trying to go sort of beyond those sorts of ideas of who we are. Yes, what do I want to say about that? And one other thing was about we're always participating in life. Artisidi was saying it's always participating in life. And the more skillful, the more ethical we are, the more we're in harmony and in connection with life, with other beings and life. And when that happens, when that sort of sense of connection comes, or that sense of harmony, then something beyond self comes into being. So there's something else that comes into being by letting go of these sort of ideas. And, I think we might know we need to be skillful, that it's always going to have a better outcome, and from a Buddhist perspective, whenever you're skillful, whenever you're ethical, it's going to have positive fruits, it's going to have a positive effect. And when you're unskillful, the opposite happens. This isn't a judgment, it's just a fact. It's like a law that this happens. We talk about the law of karma. So we can know that, but then Sangha actually talks in here about how do you translate knowing into being? and how difficult it can be, when self-interest comes into being or something, when there's the last biscuit on the plate or whatever it is. We might know it's more generous to do this, but we don't always do it. And he talks about Socrates, the Greek philosopher, and that he was saying that if you know what's good, that's enough. Knowing what's good, you'll follow that up with an action. But then Aristotle says, no, he's left out those irrational parts of the soul. Those irrational parts of something. So it's just, it's very difficult, isn't it? We might really know and long to be really skillful and ethical, but it's very difficult to do. Self-interest can take over. Okay, so that's sort of a bit, and we're sort of moving into the whole why doing the ritual. This is taking us into this. So as Buddhists, we're trying to really direct all our energies towards enlightenment, towards the Buddha's experience of awakening. We're trying to orientate ourselves towards the Buddha. And puja can help us do that, ritual really helps us do that. I think, it touches other parts of us, as Artisidi was saying earlier. So in the puja, there's these seven folds, these seven elements, and we talk about them like they're like a mood. They're like a mood, an aspiration. They're sort of taking you on a journey. So we've been going on a journey. We started off with revering the Buddha, revering the Buddha's qualities, so looking up the potential, something beyond us at this moment, we're looking at that. And then in the, salutation, so then we act on that, we salute the Buddha with a folded hand, we sort of, we could bow to the Buddha, sort of bowing to those qualities, our potential. And out of that, there's this wish to go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So we look to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha for meaning, for satisfaction, for joy, and by going for refuge, you're saying, well, this is what I want to do with my life. This is how I'd like to live it. I'd really like to live more ethically, more skillfully, more in harmony. And after we've chanted after we've done the going for refuge section, and we chant the precepts, and out of that we sort of see the things that we haven't managed to do skillfully or well, and then we have the confession section. So then we can just acknowledge, that didn't go well, I didn't do that well. We just really acknowledge it, and then we let it go. We just confess it. I'd rather not do that again. It just creates a lot of suffering. I'm going to try not to do that again. And then that mood sort of lightens something up, and then there's this opportunity. You feel freed because you're no longer sort of trapped by these sorts of things that haven't gone well. And you can really rejoice. So then we have the rejoicing section, and really, really... and if we're really freed through that confession section, we can really utterly rejoice in other beings, all the good that goes on in the world. If we look around, it's happening all the time. But really rejoicing in the fact that the Buddha taught, and all these other teachers have taught Buddhism and enabled us to be here today. And then out of that, we're in another sort of phase of being, and then we entreat the Buddhas to give us a teaching, and we're open and receptive, and we're saying, I've done all these other stages, I'm really ready, I really want to have teaching. And then traditionally in the puja, there'll be a reading from an enlightened being, just a Dharma teaching. And that's when we're at our most sort of open to hearing that. So then we have the teaching, and that's a teaching of wisdom and compassion, and then that takes us into this phase, which is the transference of merits and self-surrender. So through all of that, we're really getting into contact with our potential. You know, that's sort of what's happening. And yeah, we're bringing into being what we call the bodhicitta, and that's the will, the will to enlightenment, the will to follow in the Buddha's footsteps for the benefit of all beings. So that's where the puja is sort of taking us. Yeah, so transference of merits and self-surrender. So in that we say, may the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. So even our merit, what we're doing in the puja, we're in this particular phase, we're giving up everything. We're giving everything away, and including the merit gained. So through doing a puja, we accumulate merit. You know, it's a very positive thing to do. You know, to do a puja, and it's from this karmic perspective. You know, it creates lots of positive fruits. You know, lots of benefits for you. But that so we've done this puja. We've gone through all these phases, and now we say, now I'm going to give it all away. I'm going to give all my merit away. And Sangha actually says we can't, you know, obviously we can't literally do that. You know, there's not a thing we can give away, but it's an attitude of mind. And I really like that. You know, this sort of attitude of mind that really doesn't want to hold on to anything. Not holding on, not clinging onto anything at all, including the merits gained. Yeah, so we're not holding on selfishly, even to our good actions. And I think there's something about that attitude of mind. If we can sort of just touch into that or something, what would that be like? You know, just to really give everything. You know, it's not a negation. It's not a giving away that's what's the sort of word, in a negative sort of way, sort of sort of that might end up with you feeling resentful or something like that. It's much more like a freedom. So this is trying to get towards freedom. And the teachings that you receive in the puja will usually be about letting go of holding on to things, because fundamentally we can't hold on to anything. But so there's this sort of letting go. And so we're letting go of, it says, my personality throughout my existences, which means the past, right now, and the future. Letting go of that. Letting go of possessions, my possessions. Giving them up without regard to myself. And Sangha actually talks about, we even give up, you know, reputation. You know, that could, you know, we often want to be seen in a particular light or something. You said something about that earlier, you know. It's lovely when people think you've done well. It's not so great when they think you haven't done well, and you can go bobbing up and down on this, or cycling round. But letting go even of that. And there's a wonderful story that Sangha says about, it's a true story based on somebody called Hakuin, who's a Buddhist teacher, very well-renowned teacher. And a woman arrives, I think with her family, at the monastery where he is, and he's accused of being the father of her child. And he just says, is that so? Is that so? And they want him to take the child, and he takes the child. And then at some point later, she comes back, the family come back, and they say it wasn't true, you know, it wasn't him. And he's like, well, is that so? You know, he doesn't get agitated by it or wound up at all. And I think there's something beautiful about that. He's not he's not afraid of losing his reputation. that sort of fear is gone. And I think it sort of just gives us a flavour of potential, what's possible. So from a spiritual, perspective, really, all attachment needs to be given up, and for us to be truly liberated. And it's just the attachment to things, so the attachment of giving up. And the verse also talks about just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings. And so we can think about the elements, the earth, the sun, the rain, air. It's totally non-discriminatory, isn't it? It just falls and shines on everyone, equally. And that's what it's sort of getting at, and may we become like the elements, be serviceable and do anything we can to help other beings, without distinction. And then that's, if we think about the metta bhavana, Sartre was saying, connecting with that humanity, with everyone's human. We share this experience. So this stage really counters any tendency to hold on to anything, but at that, we're at a different point by the time we've come through all these other stages, really letting us let go, and really to think about other beings. It's all. So may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space. So to do this, we need a high degree of positivity, towards others. And the metta bhavana practice can really, really help with that. But the puja is like an extension of the metta bhavana, like another level of opening up to all beings. And the whole puja is paving the way for this will to enlightenment, the bodhicitta, to arise. And it starts off with in our individual effort, we have to put ourselves into the puja. We have to put ourselves in, we have to do it, we have to participate and really engage with it, really. And then we're aligning ourselves with the Buddha and with the nature of reality. We're sort of aligning ourselves with that. We're becoming more and more receptive. And then Sangha says at some point, the bodhicitta supervenes it. It's as if a stream of enlightenment takes you over. So something else happens. This sort of move from, this person doing something, participating in the puja, becoming more and more receptive, and then something else happens, and it's like this stream of enlightenment takes you over. And this is when the self-surrender part of comes in. So you're surrendering yourself, and it's not like you're not going to be anything. It's like the ideas and notions about ourselves as being a fixed being in space and time. And the more we practice, the more we realise that's not the case. So what we're surrendering is this sort of idea of this sort of separate self. And we're becoming more a channel, or we're stepping into this sort of stream of reality. And one of the examples Sangha actually gives, he says about what this might be like. If we think like at a very ordinary level, emotions can sweep through a crowd. Don't know if have you ever felt that, you're sort of in a big situation and the emotion sort of sweeps through the crowd. And I can remember going on a peace march in 2003 in London. I can think many, many times, but particularly that time. And everybody sort of walking and the whistles going and people. And there was like this feeling that was going it was so strong. Tears were coming into my eyes and many other people. It was like this emotion's moving through us. And so Sangha actually said that's sort of one level of something happening, that does happen. It might happen, at a concert or something like that, or some gathering where you're all on the same page. I don't know if anybody sort of relates to that sort of emotion sweeping through. But the bodhicitta is, we could think of it like there's something else happens here. It's not an individual phenomena. It comes into being in those sorts of conditions that we've been talking about. So Sangha actually talks about the bodhicitta, this will to enlightenment, will normally arise when you get a group of people together who are practicing at a stage where that last stage of the puja, they've reached that point and they're all together. So he said often, and he talks about stream entrance, people who have got so far in their practice that the pull towards enlightenment is so strong, it's irreversible. So it's like they're in that stream and they're being pulled along towards enlightenment. And we talk sometimes about gravitational pull. The gravitational pull is often to things that aren't so helpful, sense desires, chocolates, all those sorts of things. Or the gravitational pull to behave in a certain way that's not helpful or something like that, and to be more like part of a group. But something else can happen and then you step into the stream and then the pull is much more towards enlightenment. But for us, and wherever we are in our practice, some of us will be very new, we can still have a very, very sincere and dedicated sort of longing to follow the bodhisattva ideal. And so the bodhisattva, it's a being who really practices and wants to help other beings. So we can all have glimmers of that and tastes of the bodhicitta arising. We've got this potential for Buddhahood. It is the human potential. And then there's these ways to practice towards that, and the puja being one of them. And the bodhisattva aspires to give support to the whole cosmos, to all beings everywhere, limitless beings. But as people practicing, the way we can practice, we can aspire to give support in our immediate situation, to really help. And Sangha, he talks about we can't really help ourselves without helping others. We can't really gain enlightenment for ourselves. It's not possible, because actually, self and other, we're inseparable. We're all inseparable. Helping others and helping ourselves, it's like different side of the same coin or something. It's intertwined, but we forget it. We just forget. So this final stage, I love this actually, it says the sharing of merit helps us move towards the bodhisattva ideal, helps us move towards really helping other beings. It's in accordance with the reality of our situation. It is in accordance with life, with the situation of living beings. So we're moving actually through that puja much more into being in tune with how things really are, rather than ideas of how we think they are, and going beyond an idea of a self, a fixed self, into something that's way beyond that, and that we all have the potential to do. And the puja's one way into that. But just to end, maybe just to say for newer people, you know, like Buddhist ritual. Well, I think we always encourage, you know, like just even if it feels really weird or there's some sort of, you know, you feel, oh God, what's this, you know, or have a strong reaction, just giving it a go and seeing what happens, you know. But if it's not for you, it's fine. You don't have to be concerned about that at all. There's lots of ways in to this same sort of area through meditation and reflection and study and friendship and all sorts of things. You don't have to worry about that. But if I think back to my own experience, you know, I said about it the other week, I came along to a class back in 1997 looking for an ethics. I wanted to understand Buddhist ethics because I wanted to live more ethically and kindly. And then I was very interested in the meditation. And then somebody did a puja, and I just thought it was really, really seriously weird. And I was so shaken by it. I was like, it's sort of like, I thought it was so sort of common sense and rational, this whole Buddhism lark. And then some people are doing all this bowing and everything. I found it so weird. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to engage in it. But I just kept going over the years. And now I think, wow, now I understand, you know, I think that it can, you know, I can experience myself so differently through the puja, have a different experience of my mind, my consciousness. And it has touched parts of me that I don't think could have been touched. You know, but we're all very, very different, so we've all got to find our own way in. Okay. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that section. But what we're going to do is we'll go into groups. And then we'll come back and we'll just do a very, very simple ritual around this, just around this section of transference of merit and self-surrender. So I thought what we might talk about in groups, you know, there might be something in this talk that you feel you particularly want to talk about, and do feel free to explore that. But I wonder if you've got any sense of like having some mask or persona or something, and sometimes having a sense of that coming down a bit, or being a bit more free or more comfortable in your being. Maybe you've had a taste of that here. Being more yourself in a way. Does that make sense? Does that make sense after sitting?
No, it makes sense, I think.
Well, I'm asking you because I know you'll tell me if it doesn't. In a good way.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll get into groups and just talk about that, or anything else that's been stirred. Okay, so what have we